welcome to Life Coaching on the Move. I'm your host, Dawn Fiske. I'm really grateful for you joining me on this podcast. Today we are talking all about coping with rejection. It may not be something you're handling right now, but I do know that each and every one of us faces rejection to a certain extent, large or small, at some point or other in our lives, and will do in the future, because it's a fact of life. So I thought it was time we tackled this subject because it applies to us all. If just a couple of little bits of admin, I have now put up various different gift voucher options on the website, one for 2 sessions or a voucher for 3 sessions. So if you would love to treat your loved one to a gift this Christmas that makes a real long-lasting difference in their life, if you want them to start 2021 really strong, focused, they can work on whatever topics they want, whether it's stress or confidence or life or struggles or goals or motivation or career, then the vouchers are there. You can't purchase them online. You have to drop me an email and I will send back bank details and send the electronic e-voucher across to you. They do not expire, so there's no time limit for them. So www.milestone-coaching.co.uk. The second thing to say is that in January, early January, the first week of January, I think about the 5th and the 7th, something like that, the Tuesday and the Thursday, I have workshops starting. On the Tuesday, it's a 7-week life skills and confidence workshop commencing, and on the Thursday is a 3-week stress management workshop commencing for all ages. I would say probably 15 is a good age and up. Less than 15, I should probably do it with just those young people together, so it's less daunting for them, and they're all similar ages. I do teens, I do from about the age of 10, 11 upwards, but they may struggle if it's just one young teenager, and adults, they may not feel comfortable. But I have around about 6 people per group, so that it's safe and friendly, and you all get involved on Zoom, and it's not overwhelming and daunting and scary, especially as it's a confidence course, because it takes some confidence to sign up for it. But don't worry about it. It is really safe, very friendly. I make it so, and you don't have to speak up straight away if you don't want to, and in fact you can even have your camera off if you want to. Anyway, so they're on the website as well. So www.milestone-coaching.co.uk. And if you know of anybody that could benefit, then maybe share this podcast with them or share the website link with them, and do your friend a favour, because they may be having a really tough time at the moment, as so many people are during COVID. So let your friends know you may be doing just what they need right now and giving them just what they need. It might be the answer for them all. Let's not waste any more time. Let's crack on to this week's episode of Life Coaching on the Move, where we deal with how to cope with rejection. Today I want to talk about quite an emotive subject, one that I haven't really specifically directly addressed. It's how to cope with rejection. Now, I thought it worth tackling this because rejection is a fact of life. It is normal, and it is something each and every one of us will have had to face at some point in their lives, our lives, and or will be something we will have to face again in our lives, because it happens to us all. So I guess the first thing that I wanted to say is experiencing rejection is really normal. It's part of life. So the first learning from that is it's not about you. It's not you. It's rejection. It's a fact of life. So first, don't beat yourself up about it. That's the overall learning for today. So rejection, what do I mean by that? Well, we can face rejection in so many areas, so in so many ways. It can be small rejections, it can be ginormous rejections, they can be slightly stinging rejections or overwhelming rejections. So they're a sliding scale, but they are normal. And as many things that we talk about here, it is up to us largely how we cope with it, how we face it, how we internalize it, and what we do with it. So rejection, well, it can come in all sorts of packages. It could be going back to when we were at school and being rejected from the team, not being picked to play for the school in football or netball or whatever it was. Or we may have had a passion, a hobby, playing hockey for the town or something like that, and not being picked. It could be just literally at PE, where two captains they had to pick, and you were lined up and you were the last to be picked, and you were always the last to be picked for the sports PE session. And the mortification, the humiliation, the embarrassment, just the awfulness of that. Or it could be more modern day, it could be now, social media, putting a post out there and no one responding to it, no one liking it, no one commenting on it, it just being ignored. That kind of feeling of rejection. It could be a job interview and not getting that job. That's one that I work with a lot. And being turned down for that role when you've put in so much work and effort and putting yourself on the line, and just getting an impersonal email, or worse, not hearing at all, coping with that. Or it could be so much bigger. It could be a date, someone turning you down for a date, a social, phoning a friend and suggesting that you meet for a walk in these COVID days, or going out for dinner when we're out of lockdown or whatever, or going on holiday with you, or spending Christmas with you, whatever it is, and them turning you down for whatever reason. That can really sting and really hurt. Or it could be that somebody else has had a dinner party, one of your friends or your circle or your loved ones have had a party, dinner party, a Christmas party, a drinks party, whatever it is, and you've not been invited for whatever reason. Or something like that, a group going to the cinema or something, again, outside of COVID. Or it could be even worse. It could be your loved one now rejects you for somebody else, or for another life. I don't, those words, I don't love you anymore, I want a divorce. That the awfulness behind that. So there are some small ones, there are some hugely painful ones. But I think any one of us listening to this now can relate to one or two or more of those at one point in their lives. And it may be that you're going through this now. It may be that you're really hurting right now from something like this. So how do we cope with that? Well, first it is to accept that this is normal. You are living. That's great. This is a normal part of life. And like so many things in life, they can be opportunities to learn an awful lot about ourselves, about how we respond, about what kind of person we are, about what we want from life, about how we're going to live our future, sometimes about our past, because it can hook into past events and past similarities. It can make us see that perhaps we're running patterns. This is happening to me again. Why is this happening to me again? Kind of thing. And so for all of those reasons, it can be a great learning, because we can learn loads about ourselves. It also can be a very badly wrapped gift. Rejection, whilst it hurts and stings at the time, it can be a gift, because we can move on in life in a different direction than perhaps we thought we would. We've had to change course, and actually in months, weeks, months, years ahead, we will look back and sometimes we can see it as an absolute gift. Phew, that was a lucky one. I escaped that. Now look at my life. It's so much better. Thank God that didn't happen, or I didn't stay with that person, or I didn't get that job, because look at the job I'm in now. I love it. And I've got such good friends here. Those sorts of things. So sometimes it's a blessing. It doesn't feel it at the time by any means, but that's when we stay in the hurt. Sometimes when we get ourselves out there, out of the pain, out of the dwelling and the feeling sorry for ourselves. And don't get me wrong, we do need that. We do need a time of grieving and, licking our wounds and coming to terms with it. But there does come a time when we've got to get up and get on. Then we can reflect back. So how can we cope with it? Well, there are so many ways. I remember when I was married to my first husband, and discovering that he was having an affair. The rejection, I can't describe it in any other way than to say it felt like physical pain. It felt like I'd physically been hurt. In fact, it did physically affect me, actually. It wasn't just emotional. It definitely physically affected me. I lost 2 stone in weight at the time. It physically made me unwell, as I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating properly. And what I did eat wasn't digesting properly, because I carry all my emotions in my gut. IBS was fired up. I was in constant pain, constant on and off the loo, lost my appetite because everything hurt. The weight fell off me. It was very painful. I remember at one point having to have an endoscopy and have tubes and cameras shoved down my throat to check in case it was an ulcer and things, and it wasn't. It was very sore. Stomach lining was very sore, but it was all sort of IBS related and stress related and upset. I was having very bad dreams. I think I may have mentioned these on the podcast before. Very bad nightmares, disturbed nights. That's when I could sleep. I remember the torture that you put yourself through. I remember everywhere I went, imagining that, because we were both still in the same town, dreading the possibility of bumping into him with her, whether it was the petrol station, the supermarket. I remember sitting on the sofa by myself in the evenings watching TV and thinking, is he watching this now? Are they watching this now? Everything. Hearing something on the radio and thinking, this is our song. Is he listening to this station now? The torture and the persecution is just so excruciatingly painful. And it does genuinely feel like physical pain. It is physical pain. And you never think you're going to get over it. You never think you're going to feel well again, happy again. You never think you're going to love life again. You never think you're going to forgive. You never think you're going to repair and heal. But you do. You absolutely do. I can speak from my own experience and from many, many clients and from friends. It will get better. And so how did I cope with that? Well, obviously, I needed a period of time of really, really grieving, because my identity was wrapped up in that relationship. My future was so invested in that relationship. I thought I knew what my future was. I thought we were going to grow old together. We had plans. We were doing building work. We were one day going to have a family. We were going to book this holiday, etc. We had been talking of our future, both short-term and long-term. Suddenly, that future's gone. My identity was wrapped up with him in terms of being so connected to his family, having our home together, our 2 dogs together, our future, our plans, our friendships were all joint couples that we were friends together with and would socialise and go around to their house, vice versa. I even he was running his own business and I was running it with him. I was doing all the admin, all the wages, all the VAT, all of that. So we were also running a business. I also had my own job, but was helping and supporting his as well. So that couldn't stop, even though there were so many mixed emotions of rejection, of hate, of anger, of hurt, of sadness, of desperation, wanting it to be solved, wanting him to stop the affair, and temporarily, for a while, I wanted him to stop the affair and carry on and give us another go. I quickly got away from that, actually, and then realised there was no way I would go back. But for a short time, I wanted to cling on to the familiar and what I believed I loved and knew, etc. So you do need time to really grieve the fact that all of those plans and your future and your identity has just been ripped from you. And you've got to rethink all of that. You've got to find a new future. You've got to find new friends. You've got to find new identity. Who am I single? Who am I by myself? Where will I live? How will I, financially, how secure am I? Emotionally, how secure am I? Etc., etc. I'd never lived alone because I had gone from being at home in my family with parents and siblings to the relationship home. So I hadn't been single in every sense of the word, by myself, living in my own little place. So all of this is a massive steep learning curve. So there comes a point you do need to really, really grieve and hurt and get that out and talk to people. So what I would say, the first thing was talking to my friends, crying with my friends, laughing with my friends, because there were moments we could laugh together too, and those times increased and the crying decreased. It took time, it took a lot of time, but you do begin to see the shift. And I remember one of the turning points, I remember thinking, oh my word, I haven't thought about him for the last 10 minutes, whereas previously I'd be thinking and obsessing about him the whole time. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about him for over an hour. Or I've watched the whole of this film and not thought about him, or I've been out with friends and not talked about him, etc. So you do begin to see signs that you're healing. But then there's also the need to focus on what you do still have. For a time, there was huge focus and attention on all the things I was losing, all the things that I was going to lose, I had to grieve those things. But there's also an acknowledgement of what I still have or had, the things I was still grateful for, that I still have my family there who were incredibly protective and supportive and on my side, as it were, there for me. They had my back. My friends, you find out who your real friends are. The things I had to be grateful for. My job was a great distraction. I threw myself into my role. I threw myself into studying as well, and got new friends and got new interests. So the depression and the low self-worth start to leave. You stop feeling such a failure and so rejected, and you start working on your worthiness, because I was now completely threw myself into work, and you feel a bit better about that because you get little achievements, you achieve your goals and you start to feel better. Signing up for some studying, I started to feel better about that. I can do this, I can learn things, I've got new friends, they don't know me with him. I think it was months before I even said that I was going through a divorce. In fact, I know for sure at work, I didn't tell anybody at work. I wanted to walk into work and forget about my broken marriage. So I didn't tell anybody for a long time. It was my time to shut off from that, and then I would go home again and dwell on it and grieve and carry on. So the depression, the low self-worth, the feeling of being a failure, the feeling of being unwanted, unworthy, the feeling of being alone, the fear of the future, the lack of identity, who am I now, etc. All of that begins to get better by throwing yourself into other things, focusing on what you still have, focusing on who you are. So I talked to all my friends, cried. I signed up. I'd started to learn to become a counsellor, which through that you actually do lots of counselling of each other. You do lots of practice sessions. So I was able to talk through what I was going through. So not only was I learning counselling skills at the time, I was receiving counselling from my colleagues in that group. So I would say to you, if you're going through this, then do talk to your mates, but also get some professional help, because that's what helped me by signing up on this course. I was getting help from the tutors who were running the sessions, from the content, and from the practice sessions. I was also learning psychology now. I'd signed up to learn psychology. So again, I was learning lots of things. I also read around the subject a lot about personal development. I got information from personal development books. We didn't have so much YouTube and things like that then. This was a good 30 years ago or more. So we didn't have the same access, but any access that I had to anything like that, I soaked up and learnt lots about myself. So if you can, talk to a counsellor. If you can get some counselling either free through the GP, or you can get a professional, talk to a professional. Talk as much as you can and get it all out. Talk it through, process it. That's what it helps you to do. It helps you to process it. And then you need to put it into perspective. I was young. I needed to put it into perspective. I had a lot of years ahead of me. I didn't want this to define me. I didn't want it to hold me back. I knew I still had time to repair my life, repair me, have future relationships, have a better future, do things. I signed up or booked a ranching in where was it in America? Where was it? I was supposed to be going ranching. Signed up to do some ranching, a holiday by myself. I lost loads of weight because of the IBS, but then I felt great. I felt physically good. I signed up for a gym for the first time ever. I started running. That was when I started running and got the taste for it. I liked feeling fit again. I liked buying smaller size clothes. I felt more confident. That ironically gave me more confidence. I felt and looked better than I had felt and looked for a long time. Eventually, that took time, but I could see that actually I was beginning to blossom a little bit. I quite liked, once I got over first living by myself, I actually could see the benefits. I remember thinking, oh my word, I can have the heating on at any temperature. He worked outside and I worked inside in our roles. So I would come home and be freezing because he'd come home and be really hot because it's a lot warmer inside. So he'd turn the heating down. So we had this ongoing battle about the heating. I'd turn it up, he'd turn it down, etc. I'd feel permanently frozen at home. But now I realise I can have the heating on at whatever temperature I want. Of course, you always have the remote control arguments of what you're going to watch on TV. 30 years ago, we didn't have so many TVs and Netflix and all of that. So we had minimum choice. So you'd be battling, he'd want to watch some sport and I wouldn't, or whatever. Now I had the remote control and the TV all by myself. I could watch what I wanted. I could come and go when I wanted. I could see who I wanted. I could sit on the phone for as long as I wanted. I could have the temperature up. I could sleep in. He was an early riser every weekend. So at last I could have weekends and sleep in. I remember just seeing all of the small benefits. But they're important to see, because if you don't start spotting some benefits, you'll keep yearning for the past and you'll stay stuck. I had to see some benefits. I could see that I had new friends, brilliant new friends that are still friends now, that meant so much to me at the time, still mean so much to me. that I would never have met had we not gone through that heartache. So I had to see what it was bringing me as well as getting over the hurt. I had to see the new opportunities. I was now studying. I had A-levels. Oh, I could do something with this. I could go to university. Turning it around. So put it into perspective that I was young. I had a lot of years. This wasn't going to be my whole life. It wasn't going to always hurt. I could still get some life. I could still get some enjoyment, etc. You also have to understand that it's not the whole of you that's being rejected. So if you're being rejected, say for a job or for a team or on social media or whatever it is, or you've not been invited to that girls' trip or lads' skiing trip or whatever it is, it's not the whole of you as a person that's being rejected. It's part of a skill set, for example, for a job. Just recently, I had this. A friend of mine flagged up a part-time role that I might potentially be interested in, because it was with youngsters, helping them find roles at a university in Hampshire. It was a role where I would be working with them to help them get on a graduate scheme or university students their next role. So it was an employability advisor, I think, something like that. And it was right up my street. And right now, times are unpredictable through COVID. So I've got more time on my hands because the boys are a lot older. They don't need me. The puppy is much older now and settled. So I thought, well, do you know what? I could do a part-time role. It had my name written all over me. It really appealed to me. I love working with youngsters. I love doing career coaching. I love helping people get a role and come out the other side, landing that role and doing really well, helping them do their CV, helping them interview, etc. I find it hugely rewarding, and this would be my dedicated part-time role, and I could still carry on with the coaching around it. So I thought, perfect. It's also a regular income, whereas COVID at the moment, it's a bit feast and famine. It's busy, then it's quiet, and busy and quiet. And so it would be nice to be able to budget and so on. So it had so many reasons that I thought, do you know what, I'm going to go for that. But of course, I haven't myself been for an interview in almost 20 years. Well, probably actually at least 20 years, because the interview for the role that I left to have children was years before. And so I hadn't actually been for an interview or applied or done my CV in ages and ages and ages. So I did that and was shortlisted and had the interview via Zoom because of COVID. Of course, I had never interviewed via Zoom either. And it went well, but I didn't get the role. So this happened last week. I didn't get the role. I really would have liked the role. I felt really enthusiastic. I felt the interview went well, but I didn't get the role. And so I've been through this rejection. And actually, it was quite a profound experience, because the whole thing was a profound experience because, as I say, I haven't interviewed myself. I haven't been interviewed for at least 20 years or applied for anything for 20 years. Although I work with people on this, it's a bit like a cobbler never does their own shoes, isn't it? Anyway, so I was staggered at how nervous I was about the interview. That really surprised me. So it was a big learning. I was shocked at just how nervous I was and just how much invested I was in it and how much I really wanted it. So I had the Zoom interview. I had to do a 10-minute presentation on Zoom as well, which meant doing lots of research. So I had thrown in the whole weekend previous to that. I'd thrown in a lot of hours. Days beforehand, I'd been researching. I put a lot of time and effort into it. So I did my 10-minute presentation. Of course, everything that I know goes out of the window because of enthusiasm. And anyway, so had the interview, and then 2 days later got the email, a standard email, impersonal email, which I now understand clients of mine who get upset by that impersonal email. It does feel very cold, saying I was unsuccessful. And it was quite an eye-opener in terms of how it felt. It did feel like real rejection. It did feel very disappointed. It did feel that I had personally been rejected. Nowhere near like a divorce because it's a sliding scale, but actually it really, really did impact on me. And this I would recommend as well. I emailed back asking for feedback. Now, I would really highly recommend this in any way with any kind of rejection, because actually thinking about the divorce as well, it did help me when my ex and I did get together and have a sit-down discussion about why and how did it all happen and how did you meet her and why didn't you think about us, etc. We went for dinner. Actually, I remember it was my birthday and he said, look, I remember he contacted me and said, it's a really small town. We need to stay friends. It's your birthday. Can I take you out for dinner? And so I did go, and we did have our first proper conversation. And that was the first start to us becoming amicable, and then later friends, and still in touch 30 years on. So that was a good healing process, and it was a good opportunity for me, I suppose, if you want to call it something quite a buzzword, I guess. It was feedback for me. It wasn't me that he rejected. He had explained. In hindsight, I've only just realised this. It was the temptation that had been put in front of me. We were young. It was too tempting. He was foolish. It was, we were very young and he hadn't sown his wild oats. And in hindsight, neither had I. And he was spontaneous and wasn't thinking. And before he knew it, he got himself into a mess. He couldn't get out of it, and so on and so on. But that helped me to understand that it wasn't me as such he was rejecting. It was something else that was too tempting at the time, and that he was weak. However, I hadn't thought about saying that. With regard to the job, I asked for feedback and nothing came. And then on the Friday evening, an email came from one of the three that interviewed me, the head of department that did interview me. And he had spent time to write me a personal email, which I appreciated. That kind of was consoling me that they'd sent a standard email from an administrator that was almost a dear sir type thing. The fact that he'd spent some time doing it, that made it feel better. But actually it was explaining who they went for, that they were already working in higher education, whereas I hadn't. They already had experience at the university, whereas I hadn't. So they were more qualified for the role, which made it feel a lot better. I had an understanding. But I have to say, when the email came through, I had to make myself read it because I was nervous. I realised that I would have negative feedback that might hurt. But I swallowed hard and thought, well, you've got to learn, you've got to find out your weak areas and your areas for development, which is something I practice. So I need to bring it into my life too. So at first I was nervous of reading this, but the first paragraph or two was all about the person that did get it and how much more qualified and suitable they were for the role. The second was about what I could do differently in the future, was all about researching the area a little bit more about higher education and graduate roles. And I haven't worked with stakeholders on graduate roles. So it was really useful. I'm grateful that he spent that time, and it really, really helped. So why am I telling you this? Well, because that whole... Now I'm thinking, what do I gain from all of that? That, it was a bit of a roller coaster. I was excited, then I was nervous, then I felt rejected and a failure. Then I felt, what was all that for? And as I always say on these podcasts, take from these experiences that we go through. When you come out the other side of the experience, ask yourself, what did you do well? What could you do differently if you had your time over again? And what can you learn from this? Well, I've put myself through that process. Now, I think, and this is what I say to people, to get over an experience, a painful experience, rejection, hurt, when you're coming out the other side, look back on it and see what you can take from it. So it's not you that they're rejecting, it's something, it's a skill set. You know, if it's the basketball team that you've not been picked for, or the football team or whatever, it's not you as a person, you Dave or you Emma or whoever is listening, it's not you they're rejecting. It might be that there are other people in the team that are stronger players in that team, or stronger actors or actresses if you don't get that audition. Or for the job, it was that somebody else was more qualified specifically for that role. It wasn't me, Dawn, as a human that they were rejecting. It was the fact that I hadn't specialised in this field before. With the marriage, it wasn't necessarily me that he was rejecting. It was the fact that somebody else was single, free, exciting, dangerous. He was young. He hadn't, we'd been together for a long time. We were too young. We were too naive, etc. So whatever it is that you're facing, find out more of the facts, as hard as that is. It's a difficult conversation, but it helps. And realize, put it into context by finding out which bit is not you that they're rejecting. It may be part of your behavior or your abilities or your skill set. So if it's a social media post and people haven't liked it, maybe they didn't like the content. It's not you they're rejecting. Maybe it's the photo. Maybe it's not a great picture as you thought, or maybe they're too busy, or they've got stuff going on in their life. If it's you're trying to do internet dating and someone's not responded or swiped you or something, it may not be you that they're rejecting. It may be part of what you've put up, that you love cooking, and maybe they've thought, I can't bear cooking, I'm rubbish at cooking. No, I don't want that. It may be something, a skill set or a part of you, not all of you. And then it's important to think about what you can take from this experience. So that I took so much from the divorce. It made me a better person. As painful as it was, it made me a better person. I'm much more caring, compassionate, empathetic to people going through relationship splits and pain. Much more so, because I know what it feels like. I've been there. It does make you more empathetic and feeling for people. You know, I've got teenagers that are going through it or will go through it, or that, they're going to get hurt. And I know that I'll be able to talk to them and be there and support them, because, it has helped. I didn't just grow up, meet their dad, get married and happy ever after. They won't be able to say, you don't understand what it feels like, because I absolutely do. So it makes us richer in so many ways. It makes us more able to understand others. Now, as you know, I do career coaching. And of course now, as well as having all the knowledge about what to put on your CV and how to get through and the application and the interview, etc., I now know the emotional side to it, because career coaching is great and I can be non-emotional about it. But actually, thinking about it, some of my clients don't always get that role that we've just coached for. And so we carry on and they apply for another, and we'll carry on coaching and preparing them for it. Now I'm going to understand so much more about their nerves beforehand, their doubts and their insecurities beforehand, how much they emotionally invest in it and how much they want it, and how and what it feels like if they're not successful for whatever reason. And so, as far as I can see now, I believe it's happened I can turn it round now as a positive that I can benefit from. So should I go for another role, I've learned a lot for me, but also I've learned a lot for others. I work with lots of people with their careers, particularly now in COVID, with people trying to do career changes or get replacement jobs if they've been made redundant, but also young people. I do lots of coaching for the under 25s and teenagers, and part of that is going to be relationships and rejection, but also applying for placements or roles and careers and things where they won't always be immediately successful. So for me, as always, I try and see the gift in these things. And that is what I would say to you. If you were going through any form of hurt and rejection, get it into context, talk it through to your loved ones as much as you can, or a professional, to process the hurt and the emotion. But then focus on what you still have. Focus on your upsides, your strengths. Look to what you can learn about any possible areas for development. And then overall, look at it and see where can the learning be in this and where can the gift be in this. Because as painful as things feel now, there may well be a gift in it. I'm almost certain there will be a gift in it. It's looking for it and spotting it and turning it around into, okay, well, it wasn't nice. In fact, it was positively awful at the time, but, and that's what you've got to look for. What is the but? But I have better friendships now. But I have a much better partner now. But I now don't use social media the way I did. But now I play for a different team that I enjoy, and it's more fun and less competitive, and we've made great friends. But I'm in a much better role now, much better suited to me, and that wasn't the right role, and I've made some really good work colleagues. You've got to see the good in it. It may not be evident right now, but it will be. And even if it's not evident right now, hold on to the hope and the fact that it will be soon. You will come out the other side. You've got to let it go, let the hurt go, and move on in order to find the positive and the learning from it. So that you don't repeat. They're not going to be the same patterns. You're not going to repeat the same mistakes. That's just a definition of insanity, to keep doing the same. So if your CV is not working for you, for example, and you're getting rejected at that point, you're not even getting interviews, change the CV. If you're getting interviews but you're not getting the roles, you've got to change your interview approach. If you're having date after date but it's never going any further, got to look at perhaps what you're saying in those interviews, or how you're coming dates, how you're coming across, whether you're coming across needy or too pleasing. You're trying to please and you're trying to be perfect. How are you coming across? And it may well be that you actually put it on the line and ask some of those dates. If you feel that you could say, what was it that you didn't like, or that prevented you from wanting to see me again? And it may well be, as hard as that bit of feedback is, it may be a gift. I didn't realise I came across like that. I didn't realise I came across as slightly aggressive, or I didn't realise I came across as grumpy, or I didn't realise, because we don't know. Our blind spots will stay blind spots all the time. We don't know. Once a friend or a loved one or a stranger says, because you came across this way or that way, then it's no longer a blind spot. Then we can do something about it. That was the gift, if someone tells you. So, rejection is normal. Rejection can be behind us. We can put it behind us. We can get over it. And rejection actually many times can work out for the best. We can learn from it. It can be a gift, and we will get a much better role, or a much better friend, or a much better club or team or position, or we can get a much better partner. If we look at it with an open mind, learn from it and take from it, it can be a great opportunity. I don't wish it on you. I don't wish rejection on anybody. It is painful. It is, there's no other word to describe it than horrible. but it doesn't last forever. And as I've said on this podcast about COVID and any negativity, nothing lasts forever. Unless, of course, you carry it with you and you keep it in your bag and you carry it around. Let it go. Let it be behind you. Focus on what you've got. Focus on what you could have. Get out there and get it. Focus on what you're passionate about. If you're going through rejection and hurt and you're trying to get over something now, put your energies and your focus on other things. In the same way that I signed up for courses because they interested me, then new passions grew, new interests grew, new opportunities came. Do that now. I know we're in COVID, but we can still do so much. You could do courses at home. You could sign up for things and do virtual courses and make friends through those Zoom meetings. You could get outside and go with your camera and do a photographic portfolio or something like that. Put together an album of lockdown. Do writing, write. Read new material, watch new stuff, create new stuff, do vlogs, blogs, all of those things. There's so many other things you could do. Learn cooking, learn to cook different foods, Asian foods, Italian, whatever you want. Don't dwell on what you're losing. Don't dwell on the rejection. Dwell on the opportunities that you could create as a result, some benefits you could get as a result, and you will come out of it much, much sooner. And if you're really struggling, then ask for help. That is a strength. That is you doing something about it. So seek professional help, whether it's through the GP or through Mind or the Samaritans or through friends. There are so many different avenues, or pay if you can, pay a professional, but do get some help. Because this time next year, you won't feel like this. This time in 6 months, you won't feel like this. And of course, you know where I am if I can be of any help. So, thank you for listening. I hope it's helped. I really genuinely hope it's helped. You take care of yourselves, talk to people, and focus on the good. And if you need to contact me, then visit www.milestone-coaching.co.uk. Have a great week.